What I'd like to do now is get right to the heart of the demo. This here is the mcp50, and I'd like to introduce this to you. The mcp50 is made of hardened impact plastic. Here's a simulation without damaging the desk, but it's made of hardened impact plastic. Qualcomm have been manufacturing these things for many, many years. They've got this right. This is a fantastic product, and it's made of hardened impact plastic with a hardened touch screen. This is touch screen, but it's designed, a lot of thought has gone into this. Drivers are in a very vibrational environment, and so if you accidentally touch it, it's not going to trigger something. And so it is hardened touch screen. You have to push into it to create activity. One thing that's very cool from the MCP lineup, this is the same with the 50, the same with the 110 or the 200. The system is disengaged, so when the driver is driving down the road, the system is disengaged to stop the driver getting it and putting it on the steering wheel and interacting with it. It will not work. The only thing that the driver can do is reach over here and tap on the screen, and a lady will come out and read the message. That's the only thing the driver really can interact with whilst he's driving. So if they had have put a guy on there, I don't think anyone would pay attention. It was smart they stuck a lady in there. So let's move on to the system. Let me just click this in here. What you're looking at on the screen here is only half of the platform. Half of it is the mcp50 hardware. The other half of it is what they call the QSP, the Qualcomm Service Portal. This is the software, the access to the software that we upload to your computers. You can put it into your maintenance, put it into you're the CEO of the business, your dispatch, at home, access to the fleet and its operation at home. That's the QSP. This here, let's just talk about the hardware for a minute for what we're looking at on the screen. The hardware, or what we call the VTM50, the VTM50 is the brains of the system. This is the heart of the system. This goes, once we set it up in the cab, this goes behind the dashboard. This is put out of mind, out of sight. It's mounted behind the dashboard, and that a cable comes from that to the Deutsch connector, plugs into the diagnostic plug, but typically beside the left leg of the driver. Then we have another wire plugging into the ignition, and then we have the cable coming from that, which is the antenna. We have a bit of Velcro on the bottom of it. It goes on the dashboard and it's routed around the windscreen, and that's pretty much it. Then we have the mounting section that mounts permanently on the dashboard, that fixes to the actual mounting, and that's pretty much the system. I'd like to quickly talk to you about the center section here, the VTM50, the brains of the unit. What this is doing in a critical event like an accident, it's recording the data for a full 5 minutes. It will then, in an accident, carry on recording the data for a further 2 minutes. What's happening here is that it's trapping this data. There are actual mathematical algorithms that trigger this event, such as hard braking, perhaps a rollover that will trigger it, or what can happen is also in a situation where a driver perhaps is in a dangerous situation, perhaps he's being accosted by somebody trying to get into his cab or something, or a truck jacking or something of that nature. And so it can actually be manually triggered. The driver would hit a critical event and he would manually trigger that. And what we would do is we would trap all that data, and so what happens is it freezes all that activity, about 16 different metrics of the activity of the vehicle, and it would trap it and send it back to dispatch. No longer are you having to get a phone call 2 days later saying one of your drivers were just involved in an accident. I mean, that's the worst thing you could listen to. What this will do, this system is going to notify you instantly of it actually occurring. So let's take a look at that for a minute. Why is that important? Well, let's have a look at it. what you got is, you know, in a he said, she said situation, in like a 45 zone, a car's pulling out, say we've got a highway situation, a car pulls out in a 45 zone, and you got an incident right there. So it's trapped, frozen the data, pushed it all to the back office at the time it happens. So, you know, you go to court, you show the data, it's gone as the he said, she said situation. That's no way to win a lawsuit. You've got a situation here with the mcp50 in your fleet. You've got to trap the data. The driver was doing 45 in a 45 zone. Hey, end of story. Even in a truck stop, I've seen this with my own two eyes. Say even in a truck stop where the driver's not doing anything, and I've seen this where another driver plows into the side of the truck, and they, you know, get out and swap information. It's going to show that the truck wasn't even moving. So you get back, you supply that to the insurance company. Hey, litigation is nothing. You go in with this. Hey, it's a win-win for you all the way. So let's move off from that. Here is some of the IT stuff that we can provide you with at a moment stage. We won't get into that today. I really want to show you what the system is going to do for you. The system will do in motion text to speech. So as I explained earlier, as the driver's going down the road and he receives a message, he reaches over, touches it, and a lady talks. And so that way we can keep the freight moving. The whole goal is keeping the freight moving instead of stopping and listening to your message or reading or such and such. This is the way you want to go. Qualcomm lead the world in voice recognition technology. And this is all Qualcomm technology inside here. We have truck-specific navigation. This is ALK Pilot, backed up by PC Miler, 7.5 million waypoints. This is like navigation on steroids. It's fantastic. And so we do also vehicle inspection reporting, pulls in information from the CSA and other dashboard pieces of information that we can pull in. So what we're viewing here is a screenshot of the home screen on the mcp50. You can see that the images are designed with, and I mean this most respectfully, but this is meant for people like myself who need glasses. The images on here, the icons, big full feature icons, so that drivers can see this stuff and get value out of a quick, sudden interpretation of the screen. Not having to, you know, look at little things and reach out. You can see what's happening on the home screen. A lot of thought has gone into the home screen. So we've spoken about text-to-speech. Now this is the messaging section of it is worth mentioning about, because the messaging and these macros are ready to go out of the box. You don't have to create messaging. You don't have to create macros. All of this stuff is ready to go out of the box. And I'd like to show you, we better not send a critical event here, but when you go to send a message, what's happening is a driver would want to perhaps compose a message, and he has the opportunity to select a pre-canned macro message. It's ready to go. You guys don't have to create all this stuff. It's ready to go out of the box. Very nice stuff. What you're looking at here is a screenshot of the actual logbook. What you're looking at is actually a screenshot where the drivers feel comfortable, because this is displayed in the format that a driver is used to viewing his logbooks. It's not done in some, you know, numerical number. This is done in the format of the old driver's logbook, so they feel confident and comfortable. What I'd like to do now is show you what it looks like in the back of the system. So what does it look like in the QSP, or the Qualcomm Service Portal? This is the back office view. What we're looking at here is the messaging section, and this is very rich. You can see here that it's full. There's plenty of room to add content, bill of lading, all kinds of stuff, very full, very lot of room. What we are looking at here is a proximity search. So when I had my business, what we did was we put in 3 flat panel TVs on the wall. Why did we do that? What we did was one of those TVs had the weather. In my business, we were working up on the East Coast, and so, you know, the weather affects trucking dramatically. So wherever you're working, you know, what we did was we put in 3 of these flat panel TVs on the wall, and so one had the weather, and we could send out update information to any of the trucks or the whole fleet, and notifying them, hey driver, you need to get that load off tonight, because if you don't, hey, the weather's coming in, it's going to impact delivery. And so by having the dispatch looking at a moment's notice, and any of the dispatchers could see the activity on the second monitor, what we did was we had the proximity search that you're looking at, and if you clicked on one of those, what would happen is that you would see a nice breadcrumb trail of the activity of that truck. Now when we had, you know, when I ran the business, what I did was I also, as the president, went out to Toyota and visited with Toyota and in Fremont, California, and I sat down with them and I said, hey, we're about to put Qualcomm in the fleet. We're about to put it in the fleet. And what we can do is this thing called geofencing. Well, they said, hey, what's geofencing? I said, well, geofencing is where we draw an invisible line around the customer. You know, we did it around the car dealerships up on the East Coast. You can do it around, draw it invisible. You do this on your computer. You pull this in within, you know, 50 feet or 500 feet or 5 miles. You pull this invisible fence in or out. Depends on your needs. And what happens is when the truck migrates across this invisible boundary, what happens is there is a message sent. You can have a message sent to that customer, and you can have another message sent to the back office saying delivery is taking place. Hey, this is creating high customer experience, giving customers the visibility into delivery. That's why you would want this. This is the kind of thing that these big carriers do. You know, they go in to see their shippers and they say, hey, do you want visibility into delivery? They say, yeah, sure. Well, this is the kind of thing that's come down to the smaller fleets at a small price. This is geofencing. It's very, very cool stuff. Also, I talked earlier about the GPS function, the navigation section in the mcp50. Now, the mcp50 has this very powerful application, the navigation application, and that is provided by ALK Pilot. Very, very powerful GPS navigating software, and that's supported by PC Miler. A lot of trucking companies use PC Miler, and so that is a 7.5 million waypoint designation database that's within the system. It's a very powerful system. A lot of visibility. On the screen, what we're looking at, this is giving us the ability to drill down onto your truck and looking at, say, this is your truck right here, and so you get a message, say, from your driver, and the driver says, hey sir, he sends a message back to dispatch, hey, I can't see where those other trucks are parked. And you can drill down on your truck and you can give them directions such as, hey driver, if you go down that little side road, come out here, you'll see where all those other trucks are parked. This is the kind of visibility this is GPS on steroids. It's a powerful. Now, what Qualcomm have done is allowed for a la carte application selection. That means that you don't have to pay for all of these applications in these service plans. What they've done is they've very intelligently made it so that you're not paying for everything. You can select it, but the GPS section is a $7.95 edition. Why would you want that? You would surely want it. You would want it because all it takes is one of your trucks to go down the road and miss an exit. Do this once in a month. miss the exit at 6 miles to the gallon, which is what big trucks typically get, and you would miss that by 5 miles, come back around, by the time he's done that route, he's burnt 2 gallons of gas. At $4 a gallon, that's $8. You've just paid for GPS for the entire month for that driver. Hey, you should get, hey, why else you get it? They're putting out a new update for the ALK. Very fancy update. What they're doing is the update, what happens is, the way it currently is that you, the dispatcher, send the address to the truck, the driver gets it in messaging, the driver gets it out, puts it into the GPS, and then follows the route. That's not a good way to do it. The new way, the update that's coming out, what they're going to do is use the dispatch, send the address to the truck, it goes straight into the GPS section, the driver gets a message saying, do you want to follow that route? He says, yeah, follows the route. The driver's not putting in the address, he doesn't need to. I don't know why they didn't do this years ago, but anyway, it's a new update coming out. It's lessening the opportunity to send that truck on a wild goose chase to some location that he accidentally entered in, making your delivery late, making you look silly, and it's just not a good idea. ALK pilot, this is fantastic stuff. Now let's talk about the vehicle inspection reporting. Vehicle inspection reporting is done very, very easily. To get vehicle inspection done, you know, a good vehicle inspection for a truck, and let's X out of here and move on to the vehicle inspection reporting section. This will do vehicle inspection reporting not only on the tractor unit, it will also do it on the trailer. So you've got the opportunity to do both. Now, there are some systems out there that will make you run around and scan this or scan that. That's not going to make you do a good vehicle inspection. What makes a driver do a good vehicle inspection is not ticking some box or scanning something. What makes a driver do a good vehicle inspection is by teaching the driver to get in and check the dipstick. What is the oil level? Is it low? Well, then add some oil. By checking, he's going to be going nowhere if that's low on oil. You know, by checking the tyre pressure on the tyres. Hey, what's the tyre pressure? Oh, 80. Well, hey, if it's meant to be 105, that means the tyre's heat is going to build up and he's going to pop the tyre. So doing a good vehicle inspection is all about teaching the driver to do it and teaching that driver to take ownership of that, or he'll be going nowhere. It's not by scanning some Mickey Mouse thing or ticking a box. It's by teaching and getting the driver to do a good vehicle inspection. So let's move on here. Now what happens is, as the driver signs on in the morning, he's put on duty. So then what happens is the system will allow him to go on duty, and it will automatically put him to driving status when the truck starts to drive. It's actually not putting him to driving status until the vehicle starts to migrate down the road. And so that's a very cool design within the system. What I'd like to show you here is, now I'd like to talk about the logbook section. This is a very important facet of the EOBR. You know, electronic onboard recorders, one of the very important sections of electronic onboard recorders is the logbook. So Qualcomm have spent a lot of time trying to spend they've put a lot of energy into the logbook section. Now the mcp50 will do the 7 days, also the 8 day, whatever rule you guys are working under. It will do the 7 day or 8 day. It will capture the Canadian rule, so if a truck migrates across and goes up into the Canadian border, it will capture that. It will do Mexican, but also it will do the hours, like a login guy, like hours of the daylight hours. Clock in and clock out is what I'm talking about. Let's listen to the lady talking.
You have 11 hours and 0 minutes of remaining drive time.
Okay, so I've got a lot of time left. Okay, but you can clock in or clock out. Why would you need that? You wouldn't need that if perhaps you've got a dedicated run. You've won some work, some contractual work that you're there every day. And so you're paying your drivers on an hourly basis. This is why you would use clock in and clock out. But also you could run that driver on perhaps the hours of service, the DOT hours of service. Let's look at this for a minute. What's constantly displayed here on the screen is, this is a summarized version, but what's constantly displayed on the screen on the top right hand corner is the hours displayed of availability. This is critical. When dispatch gets a hold of this, when dispatch looks at this in the back office and views a driver, then they access the driver's logbook. They see the hours of availability. So before you dispatch a driver, you look at what does that driver have left to run. What's the point of dispatching a driver if he doesn't have the hours to run it? It just only it entices that driver to do something illegal by running a load that he shouldn't be running. And so we have companies that have actually stuck in the mcp50, and by watching the hours of availability have been able to bring down their CSA scoring by not dispatching drivers on loads that they legally wouldn't have been able to run. So this is very important. What I'd like to do here is also show you the graph section, but what also can be done is if you get pulled over on a DOT inspection, the DOT are typically going to want to see two things of your documentation in the logbook. One is the driver's duty status of this day, of the day that you're being pulled over. The other section, which they will look in the summary version or the graph section, the other section is in the 7 days. What have you been doing in the last 7 days or 8 days, depending on what you're running under? Now, the DOT also perhaps are going to want a hard copy of that. How are you going to achieve that? So what you can do is actually the driver has the capability within the system of selecting the 7 days and then faxing out. He pushes the fax button, a screen pops up, and what happens is the driver then can put in the DOT officer's fax number, and he enters the fax number, he pushes request or send, and what's happening here is we are sending out only the last 7 days of the driver's logbook, nothing else, absolutely nothing else, just the 7 days. This also takes a job off dispatch of having to deal with a driver that perhaps is having that request made by the DOT in a roadside inspection. Just a nice opportunity to take workload off dispatch. Whenever you can do that, that's great. Let's put that back in here. We do not provide you with 200 reports. Some systems will provide you with 200 reports. If you're running a trucking company and you think you need 200 reports, that's a sad situation. You don't need 200 reports. We give you the same kind of reports and numbers that we give Schneider National, JB Hunt, Warner, Swift, and all of these mega carriers. You get enough reports to run your business efficiently, and you will be very happy with the volume of reports. I'm sometimes asked, how many reports do we get? You get plenty and enough. What we're looking at here on the screen is the vehicle inspection report. I mentioned earlier that we do trailer inspections and vehicle inspections. This is a screenshot of actually a driver not doing a vehicle inspection. So he's got the exclamation mark here, and so he's being prompted to do the vehicle inspection. So in your back office, here is a view in the back office what you would get into viewing your driver's visibility into his DVIRs. This is what it looks like. It's nice graphical, pictorial view where you can get a grip of that data quickly and react on it very quickly. Good stuff. These are some of the applications, sections within the applications. We do state miles reporting, very good stuff. You know, gone are the days where you bring it, you know, the drivers do their IFTA and they tabulate the mileage based on, you know, migrating across from one state to another, and then the driver comes in with all this bad handwriting and you've got to make head or tail of this, and then you've got to figure all this stuff out. Gone are those days, put them behind you. You can in state miles reporting, you can take this stuff and you can group it, your city drivers, your road drivers, your non-asset, meaning your your owner operators or your company drivers. You can group it up in divisions, east, west, north, south, and we can break it up into divisions. You take this data, put it on your IFTA and go. Real easy, real nice. These are some of the applications that we have. Qualcomm have really gone all out. These applications are fantastic, really are. This is one of them called Analytics. Analytics Manager. What is Analytics Manager? Analytics Manager comes in two parts. Analytics Manager is, it comes in basic, and then you pay another $5 if you want the more advanced. Sure, but what is it? Analytics Manager is an application that part of it has driver scorecards. It's an ability to be able to help you retain your driver base. You hire these drivers not to fire them. You hire these drivers to keep them. They've got wives and families and children, etc. And so you have a responsibility to keep these drivers. So sometimes they'll generate and develop bad behavior. But what do you have to tackle that in the past? You know, you don't really have much. Putting this stuff in the fleet, you have Analytics Manager to handle that. What it is what we do, we enter in, you get a driver scorecard, and you can enter right here, the fuel cost. And so what we have is the driver scorecard, and so what happens is, you know, you can show the driver what he is costing you. You know, maybe he develops bad behavior and he's way out here. Hey driver, you know, profitability is over here. You know, taking bad behavior and changing it to bringing him back to where his, you know, it's an ability to be able to sit down in a one-on-one coaching session. And you can say, hey driver, you know, you're out here. We need to bring you back here to profitability. Driver scorecards, really awesome stuff. Now Qualcomm have about 1.8 million of these units out in the world. 1.8 million. All that data is being streamed through the servers in California. The data is being pushed through the servers and being pushed through Analytics Manager and being sent back to you in this application. And so what's happening is the other section of Analytics Manager is the performance factor. It is comparing you side by side on three main points. It's on the basis of the geographic location you're working in, based on the size of your fleet, and based on the kind of commodities you're pulling. It's comparing you side by side. Are you up here and you're doing very well? Pat you on the back, your management style, you're doing very well, Analytics Manager. Or are you in the middle and you know you need to lift yourself up, a little improvement? Or are you at the bottom and you need to pull your socks up? Why would you want this? You would want this because you would want to know when you go out into the real world and you're competing, and you would want to know, are you competitive? When you compete with other companies, this is not to see how much money you have in the bank or you don't have in. Analytics Manager is comparing you side by side with your competition. You would want to know this. If your freight rates are competitive, are you a competitive company? You would want this. It's a fantastic application. You know, you pay a lot of money for this type of information, and you know, you pay, you know, research companies to pull in this kind of data. This is fresh. This is absolutely fresh. This is only 15 minutes old. You know, so very good. Analytics Manager, awesome stuff. Performance monitoring is another application that Qualcomm have spent a lot of time on. Performance monitoring is an application that put a lot of energy and spent a lot of time coming up with how to crunch the numbers for fuel consumption. As we know, in all trucking companies, fuel is a huge expense. And Qualcomm have gone out of their way to provide and crunch these numbers down in every way you can look at it. And so one of the important things that I did not know when I looked at some of this data from Cummins, in fact, I didn't know that the difference between a good driver and a bad driver can be as much as 30%. 30%, the difference between a good driver and a bad driver. And that 30% falls into the consumption of fuel. A lot of difference. What I'd like to ask you right now is, where do you fall in your own fleet's speed? Because if you let your fleet run out at 75 or 80 miles per hour, or even open-ended, if you do, you're wasting fuel. You need to bring that down. Some of the more successful companies, you know, Schneider, and I should say large, hugely large organizations, they crunch the numbers, they look at this stuff, and they watch fuel consumption like a hawk. And they've slowed the fleets down because they know that the fleets will last longer, the driver is not stressed as much, delivery takes place without so much risk, the truck engines just don't wear out so much, let alone the whole, you know, the age of the fleet as it's always aging, the less the speed that the truck's going down the road at, the less wear and tear on everything. So what we've found out here, Cummins have been kind enough to supply us with this information, the difference between a good driver and a bad driver can be as much as 30%. What do your trucks run out at? I can tell you that every 1 mile per hour in reduced speed is 1/10 of a gallon saved. I'll say that again. Every 1 mile per hour in reduced speed is 1/10 of a gallon saved. Let's take a look at a typical company. Here's a wonderful ROI calendar, return on the investment. This would pay for the entire system all at once, let alone it would allow you guys to buy barbecue at the end of the year and put a great big hoo-hang on for the company. You know, not to mention it would put money in the back of the office to provide more money, to provide more trucks to expand the business. You guys have not, you know, putting a company together and run an organization, you know, to make it smaller. You're making an organization to make it bigger. And so let's take a look at this. This is an ROI calendar with 40 trucks. And if you wanted to, just to make it work for your fleet, say you've got 20, halve these numbers. Say you've got 80, multiply them. So say you've got 10 trucks, you know, divided by 4. So let's take a look at it. If you've got 40 trucks and you're doing 6 miles to the gallon, and what you'll end up with, if you reduce the fleet by only 1 mile per hour, you would gain 1/10 of a gallon of fuel. So here we're looking at, these are real figures, about $4,000 per month. That's nearly $40,000, depending on where you are with numbers of trucks. That's $40,000 a year. That would buy another truck. Don't do anything other. Put the stuff in the fleet, reduce the fleet speed by 1 mile per hour. Look at the savings. Here we're having, I'm just flicking through some of the applications that the mcp50 offers. We spoke about ALK Pilot, we've talked about that. Just really wonderful big screenshots. This is very truck specific. What I also, I did want to come back here and look at this. Look at the truck specific stuff. It's really wonderful, big, you know, big picture stuff, easy to read, you know, when at a close glance. These are applications that I'm flicking through right here. I did want to talk to you about 3 of the applications that are currently available for Qualcomm's MCP110 and their MCP200. There are 3 applications that are coming to the MCP50. One of them is vehicle maintenance. The other is trip manager. and the other is workflow. These three applications I have used when I had my own organization, when I had my MCP110s in my fleet. And don't forget, if you'd watched earlier in the video, my experience with buying the MCP110s, I did not have the ability to purchase these as I would have. These have just come out on the market 2012, last year, so I didn't have the opportunity to purchase these at the time. So I did use these three new applications that are coming to the mcp50 platform, and they are awesome. The mcp50 platform, as it expands its applications, the MCP the new lineup with this vehicle maintenance, it pulls in the OEM fault codes, and what it does is it turns it into a readable sentence that you can make head and tail of. It sends an impending disaster back to the back office, and then it notifies the driver of some impending event. Very good to have vehicle maintenance coming to the MCP50. Trip Manager. Trip Manager is an application that provides automated trips. You create these automated trips on the computer, and then the driver runs them. And then we have driver workflow, which kind of is the, I guess in a simplified way, providing content for those actions, trips, and then it creates them automatically instead of the driver having to manually send these trips, the data backwards and forwards. I guess that's sort of in a rudimentary, basic way. But all that information is available on Qualcomm's website, and you're most welcome to look at that. But it has not come out yet, but is coming out very shortly. Then what I'd like to finish up here on is we have customer testimonials. We have a lot of customers that are using the MCP50, 110 and 200, 1.8 million across the globe. And then we have the availability of the system and product training. I'd like to quickly talk to you and finish up on that. Training, you need to take training in order to be up and running. You need to take ownership of the training. This stuff is utterly useless unless you do training. Utterly, it's as good as a doorstop. This is going to provide you with a lot of information, and what's going to happen is if you don't know how to use it, I mean, it's as good as a doorstop. So you need to take ownership of the training. The training is fantastic. You can take the webinar training, and it's an American giving training. It's not somebody from New Zealand. I'm hoping that you can understand them better than you can me, but it's great training. And so if you have questions, you ask them, and they want you to, to make sure you understand how to use the system. It's great training. And so you can do that over and over again. It's free, costs you nothing. Some companies will make you pay for this. Qualcomm will not make you pay for it. It's free. Training's free. And so then Qualcomm provide also, I want to let you know, they provide 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year customer service. And Qualcomm have got it right. What they have done is they've provided a system where if you don't get satisfaction with your question, it goes up another level. If we can't answer it there, it goes up another level. And so, we'll bring in an engineer if they need to. Qualcomm want to make sure that you are satisfied with your question. They are not going to leave you there. Qualcomm have put in systems with these big companies, and now all that rich customer service, functionality, reliability of the system is now coming home to you. And so I'd like to conclude the webinar with once again giving you the pricing on the system, its availability here at Cetacea, and we retail it out at $7.99, and you can lease the system for $16 a month on a 5-year lease. You can do a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, or 5 year lease, and on a 5 year it's only $16 a month. That's as much as going to the movies. Come on, I mean, you're already paying for this stuff in the form of, logbooks, VCRs, high CSA scoring. Put the stuff in the fleet. This is the best EOBR platform that you can get on the market today. And you can have it for $19 a month, $19.95 on the service side, and you can have it for $16. And at the end of the lease, hey, pay $1 and keep all the equipment. I mean, it's a really good lease. So, and at the end of it, Hey, I'd like to finish up this with this one slide. I was staggered with this type of volume of administrative hours that you can save by putting in Qualcomm's system. You can save upwards of 688 hours. This is hardcore hours. I mean, this is a lot of time. This is a lot of wasted time doing business manually. Come into the 21st century and put Qualcomm in your fleet. Thanks so much for watching this video.